Folks, the Deathmatch Arena is so much fun, but some of that fun comes at a cost. The cost of wagering. If you feel like you might have an issue with wagering, I implore you to reach out to Wraith's Wagering Addiction Hotline. It is 1-800-WAGER, Olympia, Wager, Betsy. And that is the best place for you to get help and hopefully get back on the right track to where you're going to be winning those wagers, folks. That is the goal. Am I right? Here's Fresh and Buds right now.
Fresh and
All right, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. It is episode 131. I am still your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are still all of my buds. And guess what? We have a returning favorite, one of my close buds. It is Pat Shaw of the Action Point. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing surprisingly well. I actually think this is one of the only times, and I don't know how many episodes I've been here at this point, but I'm pretty sure I've been sick for most of them. And it's still, the episode is yet to, be complete. Hopefully I don't come down with something before we finish to ruin that streak. But I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm curious though, how close are we to losing you as a host and or this audience as your buds?
Oh, I don't know. Actually, we'll see.
I'm still your host. Like, what was
I'm just saying.
The gun behind the scenes here, just aiming at you.
I don't know. Maybe one day I'm gonna just hop on here and say that's it, folks. See you later. I am now a MetaZoo creator. No, wait, that one's dead.
Ship has passed.
Legends of Runeterra. No. Jeez. It's too soon. Sorry, folks. I don't know. No. We're still rocking. We're gonna keep rocking.
Flesh and Blood's right here, baby.
It's right here, and it's humming. I mean, hey, listen, I've seen some of the videos. They're being talked about and all those news reports. Pretty awesome, but
they're cooking.
Pat is here, and yes, he's not sick, but he was asleep when we were supposed to be recording. But we woke him up. I flew to Massachusetts and found you and woke you up. And
nudged me real quick.
And came back down to New Jersey. But we got a fun show for you all. We're going to talk about RTNs because we are on the eve of RTN season. I got one right on Saturday. I can't wait. It is classic constructed. And we're going to talk about what we think about the CC format. I think the draft format is awesome, and it's not solved, and we're not going to pretend it is. So it'll be a lot of fun to see how that evolves over the next couple weeks. But we're going to talk about CC. The meta's all over the place, what we think, and also Pat has been working on Kassai, and I want to ask him how that journey's going. But first of all, how are you, buddy? I haven't asked you how you're doing. What's going on?
I'm doing well. I suppose for those who I guess haven't been playing along, I got a lung infection in January, and I was on the tail end. I have a kid, right? He just turned 6 in December. Kindergarten. Lots of just open spitting in your mouth. That kind of thing happens all the time. Parent gets sick all the time, so you kind of used to it after a while, but something hit me particularly hard in the beginning of January and ended up in the ER, and I had this massive coughing fit, and it just kicked my ass. I had blood vessels burst in my eyes, and just the whole 9 yards. I had painkillers and emergency, antibiotics and albuterol inhaler stuff, and it took a bit of it took a while to get back as I was not able to breathe or talk for any significant amount of time for longer than I was comfortable with. I was starting to questioning things here a bit. I'm now at the point where I do not have my inhaler on me, and I'm okay with that. I'm not afraid, and I can hear myself talk. I'm not scratchy, and that was like my big thing. So obviously, I haven't been like on the air on my own channel because of all of that, getting back to fighting shape, as it were. And I think we're just about there. I think the next step here is to kind of organize something, and I think we'll get back on the horse here. So was not great, doing good now.
Well, I gotta say, you look and sound great, especially compared. I mean, I saw a picture of you with the bloodshot eyes, and I was like, well, there goes Pat. We lost a good one.
yeah.
But he's back.
I was touch and go for a bit there.
Yeah, I was a little worried. I was like, it's like we start getting a little bit older, and you're like, oh, that's not.
It was definitely like I'm 38, just turned 38 into January, and to feel the chest as it was, I was like, whoa, is this what dying feels like? What's happening here? Like, oh man.
Well, we're all glad. I hope we're all glad that that was not the case. Comment below if you're not glad. Hey, I know.
Let me know who you are. Let me know who you are.
Yeah, I know how to do content, but we do got a great show for you. I'm glad you're here, and that's scary. But guess what else is scary? Going to Hartford and only playing one day. How was your one day at Hartford? You got to sneak out of the house a little bit, go play some side events. How'd that go?
It went. For the one day, it was very good. I did, I guess, underestimate my ability to actually sign up and do multiple events during the day. What really killed me was the sealed event at 1. Was actually 5 rounds. I just did not realize it was five rounds. So I had every intent on doing like the signing up and at least sitting down for the Ravenous Rabble event, and it just wasn't like, it just didn't collide. Didn't work out that way. But I started. It was funny. I got in there 8:30, register, get my extended art cards, my playmat. And there's a 9 a.m. CC event, so hopped around the vendors, which are like all right next to each other. They're just, there's bing, bam, boom, picked up the cards that I needed. Shout out to, who was there? Magnolia Games, I think, was selling there with ML was hovering around the booth back there. And Min-Max Games.
Were over there. Yeah. Hemel was over there,
yeah. Got my Blade Flurries just in time. Over there, and sat down, sleeved up the remainder of my Kassai list, and got up to go to my 9 o'clock match, and no playmat. And I was like, what? It just disappeared from the face of the earth. I was very sad about that. Gary, Mr. Viz, rectified that. He happened to got his hands on an extra one, and we converted that into me having that. So
shout out Gary.
Shout out to Gary. But I did a 3-round CC event Saturday morning as Kassai, first time in paper playing her, and felt like old times. It was just nice to put the cards down. There's a lot of Talishar testing with her. It's been like hit or miss, and we'll get into that, but definitely like shuffling the cards and playing the lines out on paper is like a different beast than Talishar testing is, and it's just it's just nice, more natural for me to do that. And we faced Sandscour, Azalea. Hadn't seen that in a while. Did good against them. My second round significant was against Jonathan Lemire, who is running an obscene fatigue Bravo list that was running like red and yellow Peace of Minds, Rainbow Staunches, just Ram's Head, just gross stuff. And as it turns out, fast forward the next day, he was the 3rd seed in the Battle Hardened. And also, I'm on the Tavern Brawlers team, and turns out he's a brawler. We weren't wearing like our team colors, so we didn't know. But I went on the team server and was really complaining hard about this obnoxious fatigue deck. And he's like, that was me. It's like, no, are you? Like, was it really you? Like, yep, it is. It's like, great. Well, congratulations. Your deck is toxic, but it's good for you to pilot it that way. But.
Yeah, I mean, those decks are just, I mean, I hear red and yellow Piece of Mind. I'm like, what is going on here? I mean,
yeah, it was yeah, it was something. I'll say that. I thought I was playing into fatigue too. Like I was trying to fight it, and I still didn't. I didn't make it. We were tracking my life totals on my phone. Like my phone fell asleep several times. There's just no action. There's no buttons being pressed. The phone just falls asleep on there. But Rose was next to me for that round too. So she was getting ready, and she obviously did well in the Battle Hardened. And so everyone seemed like was getting ready for the Battle Hardened in that event.
You were surrounded by top eighters.
yeah, I was. I was not one of them. And then my last round was against a Dromai, and boy, do I have to figure that match out, or hope the gem gods are good for me, because I think it ended like 36-0 on their end. It was just not. You can figure that one out. It was not good.
Well, Dromai is so tough because I think a lot of heroes want to just avoid Dromai and hope it doesn't exist, or hope it LLs.
Yeah.
But
Yep. There's a ton. Illusionist was a mistake. And it just is what it is. You have to play a very particular play style in order to overcome what an illusionist brings to the table, no matter what. And if you're not, uniquely fast or uniquely tall or uniquely threat dense, you're not going to succeed. So even if you feel like you're a good deck and you interact, if you're a good deck but you interact a lot and you play this value game, unless you have something extra like Icelander did, for instance, with like the arcane on top of things, you're just not gonna be able to handle Dromai the way that you'd like to. And they just, it kind of kills mid-range in that way. And I'm like, mid-range is like my happy place, and if I can play just mid-range games with everybody, I think it's like the perfect world to be in for Flesh and Blood. It's not for everybody, but it's for me. So I like decision points, right? There's a million decision points, and the more decision points I think everybody gets to play in a game, I think is great. And Illusionist takes away those decision points for you, right? And it pushes them, it kind of defers them to the allies, right? And then what you've wasted your time and brain power and resources to get rid of allies, prioritize these other things other than attacking the hero, and meanwhile they're progressing their game state, right, more and more. And by the time you feel like you've accomplished something, you realize that you've invested, your 4-card 18 damage turn took out 3 dragons and maybe dealt 2 damage to Droma. You know what I mean? And that's I'm not a huge fan of that at a 40 life hero. It's just I think it's not great.
Yeah, well, it's tough, and it warps decisions, and that is like the toughest thing to grasp, right? You're just like, like I want to play the game I want to play,
yeah,
and they don't want to let me. But in terms of decision points, Warrior is one of the most decision point dense heroes. Yeah. And we got a couple new ones, but you've mentioned you're working on Kassai. And what did you go? You went 1 and 2 in that event, obviously.
I did go. I went 1 and 2.
It's just a side event, right? People are testing out stuff, so it's not that crazy. I mean, we can't just write off a deck based on that. But how is this Kassai journey going for you? You mentioned that the Tal Shard testing has been interesting.
It's definitely a journey. A journey is the right word for it. I'll be honest. So as a Kassai main in Blitz, felt very good with her. That experience is not translating into like an 80% win rate for myself here. And I'm not sure. It's not sure. I'm not sure what exactly it is, but I am not doing well with the deck, and I think it's a me thing. The deck itself, I'm convinced it's very good. Like it's just like its matchups are good. You only have a few poor matchups that aren't very prominent depending on where you are. Like it does have like a poor like Kano matchup, but for the most part, you're favorable to 50-50 in most matchups. But like I said, that it hasn't quite translated into wins for me, and I think still trying to figure out exactly how she best utilizes her cards and her lines is something that I am determined to kind of get more familiar with. I think the biggest difference between Blitz Kassai, like OG Kassai and Blitz versus this iteration of her is that, especially in CC, I think the issue we were always concerned with Kassai is how she scales up to Classic Constructed, right? Like how do we make that hero successful? And a big question was like, do you bring like in the event you bring blood in her hands into a Classic Constructed environment, will that be enough, or will there be a greater payoff for her when she finally debuts? At the moment, it does seem like blood on her hands is still the thing to do, right? It's the best highest damage, highest value turn is being able to pop six copper with a card draw, so you have a free turn, and you're doing a minimum of a 12 damage turn, potentially a 1 card 12 at that point. The problem is that the defense capabilities of heroes scale up significantly in CC, where blocking out a significant portion of their turns to stop their on hits is much more doable in an 80 card format than it was in a Blitz format. Just for you eat equipment fast in Blitz, and you're very offensive oriented a lot of those times. But even offensive oriented heroes know right now to block out her currency turns. So block out copper, block out gold. If she can't make money, she's not really succeeding. Mm-hmm. So you used to be able to get away with just a red and a blue 2-card hand that's like a spoils and attack twice, and you still might get some gold out of it. You just don't, or some copper out of it. You just don't right now. So like you have to set up your money making turns to at least have some reaction backup. It just means like your decision to go to a 2-card hand, if you're deciding between something like a spoils and like a blade runner, you're likely block with the spoils and use the blade runner. It's much more likely to get through at least for a couple points of damage, and it's not such a big neon sign of an on hit. I'm so sorry.
I think you're good.
Okay, all right. I'm like, I
didn't even know
what is going on there?
For the listeners, because I'm not going to edit that out, Pat's camera started creeping down on him. but yeah, no, I know what you're saying with Kassai, because it's so much easier to respect the spoils, I guess, is the kind of the way to put it in CC now that like there are other similar things that we are already worrying about in CC, right? Like these big turns that they set up, and you get that in Blitz, but there's just not enough time to do it a lot. Just kind of like go. And yeah, I could see how that's a huge jump in terms of play style for the hero from the original Kassai to now a full blown CC version of her, and kind of learning how to set up things is a very tough skill in Flesh and Blood.
For sure. There's a lot of new tools, which is great. Blade Flurry I think is a we're talking warriors. Blade Flurry is a 3 of in like every warrior now. Like that's just if you're gonna start with you're gonna pick your weapon and then you put 3 Blade Flurries into the deck and then you go from there. Right now, no matter what it is, Bolton is gonna run them. Dory, Olympia, Kassai, they're all gonna run them now. There's even some like there's a few different flavors of Kassai right now too. Like where they're getting into there's a fatigue style running around. There's some I think the trying to be more aggressive has proven to be less fruitful. So it looks like getting into this more defensive shell is probably the correct way to go about it. And if you look at Battle Hardened Hartford, the Kassai made top 8. Yeah, got booted out of the top 8, right? Yeah. Yeah, where did they lose to? They lost to the Bravo. Yeah. But making top 8 like that isn't anything to sneeze at. But they had like a control heavy variant. They were running Springboard Somersault, which is like, yeah, right? Crazy.
Wait, that's a yellow, Pat.
It sure is. Sure is. Oh, man. We'll get there. When the question comes up, I'll get on my soapbox. But yeah, stuff like that. They're running Eye of Ophidia. Not Eye of Ophidia. Heart of Findel. And even cards like, I'll tell you what, card I've been even thinking about is Take It on the Chin, right? It is a Brute Warrior instant. It's a rare from heavy hitters. The next time you would be dealt damage this turn, prevent 2 of that damage, and if you do, create an agility token. That comes up a lot.
Yeah.
That's, I think it's actually probably one of the more underrated, like, defensive style cards outside of, was it No Fear there? Like, I don't think people thought a lot about Take It on the Chin, but if you're, for a warrior, I think it's great. But it does look like that's kind of, that seems to be the way to go, and really, really, really lean into your 2-card high value turns, and you lean on Dynamo. Dynamo is probably now one of the best equipments in CC. It does its thing well to the point where it's almost broken. You look at Crown of Seeds, preventing how many damage during a game. On long games you have like Findel, Spring Tunic. How many resources actually in a game can you actually make? And now you have Dynamo that can block for 10, 12 damage in a game
easily.
Like if it goes long enough, and that's so good, right? So like leaning into the best aspects of what she does, and basically getting really, really comfortable defensively, and like I said, leaning into attacking twice, clearing Dynamo, being able to use that again and again and again to just value out your opponent does seem like the way to go. A lot of the core of the list are all going to look pretty much the same. There's some questions about like, do you run cash in? Do you run 3 of cash in? What kind of helmet are you running? Are you running Crown and Dominion to start with the gold? Are you doing something else? Balance of Justice is a great card out of heavy hitters. So that's seeing a lot of action, at least in the sideboard, for most heroes at this point. It's very good. But yeah, there's not it seems like at least like 40 to 50 cards in the Kassai shells are pretty locked in. And then basically kind of flavoring to taste. You can kind of sprinkle in a little of what you want that makes it your own. I've been trying like push forwards. It was a big thing for me in Blitz Kassai, and like a 3 of push forward is there's not a lot of real estate, so you're really going to maximize those spots. Not a ton of extra like reactions going on. There's a lot of non-attack actions that just buff, and then like a couple of reactions to give go again, and like how you add on to those is kind of where you can kind of take it for yourself, whether you're going to have some additional reactions or some cute things like push forward to kind of add to that that second half of your attack if you're gonna try getting on hit, or leak some pretty good damage. Those are all the decision points that kind of prop up from your deck building, then into your gameplay.
Yeah, and it seems like a deck that's could be just the scariest, right? And like that's like where Warrior kind of lives, right? I've always felt like, yeah, I mean, it sometimes if you really know how to play against them, and I'm thinking about Dorinthia specifically, it's you can still get the edge despite what you play. But that being said, it's just really hard to kind of getting to that point, especially with such a diverse meta. And we're going to talk about how diverse the meta is. But before we do, I do want to, you mentioned some cool cards like Take It on the Chin from heavy hitters. I do want to get your fresh faves from heavy hitters. So first of all, I think we know who your favorite hero is. Is it Kassai?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to say it's Kassai. I think KO was I think outside of Kassai, the most intriguing hero. Their one arm, the little everything's a 6 asterisk ability, really I think perked a lot of ears up when they did that. And I don't think so much like Olympia as a flavor, I think looked cool, but I don't think anyone kind of quite understood what they were going to do with them. And then the Guardians seemed like okay. And I feel like the last episode of the Action Point we talked, one of my prompts was like, how punchable does this guy look, this Victor Goldman? And sure enough, when they came out, they're like, look at this guy, his face is punchable, his name is Victor. I was like, nailed the aesthetic to a T. Awesome. But they weren't like really like sexy in a way where I don't think people appreciated on the face how much of their abilities, how important their abilities are, and things like token generation are to these heroes and like the gameplay at this point. So definitely Kassai. It just has to be. There's a lot of interesting heroes in this set, and I think it speaks to the quality of it.
Yeah, for sure. Kassai and KO were the heroes that you just read them and you're like, okay, this is really cool, and then the other heroes, for the most part, I feel like you have to see what the card pool is, and then you kind of understand. I mean, I've talked at length about Up the Ante and how cool that card is and how it makes you just want to play Olympia and bet big and the chapeau and stuff like that makes Betsy look cool. So, and then, I don't know, Victor, the clashes are really the blocks, making a hero care about blocks. Yeah, Trounce is nuts.
Trounce is stupid. like if you don't appreciate like the token generation in this game yet, go against a Victor and have them block with Trounce, and you lose a clash twice, and all of a sudden there's a gold, a vigor, and a might token just on their side, and they didn't do anything. They just blocked, right? And all of a sudden they got +1 +1 attack and -1 cost. For no reason. Yeah. For no reason.
Just free.
Free money. Victor gets free money. And it just adds on to that kind of thing. It's just he's crazy.
He is.
He's crazy.
Now, what's your favorite weapon from the set?
My favorite weapon, I want to say it's Centauri Sabers, but I'll pick something new.
Non-reprint. How about that?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's kind of a cop out. I think I have to say Hot Streak.
It's not a cop out at all.
Like
the card's awesome.
The Miller's Grindstone, I think, is a unique little. It's cute. But I think Hot Streak is something I initially kind of passed on. But it does seem more and more like it's probably the correct weapon to just play outside of another Saber. So you do Saber and then Hot Streak for the most part. You take it out in the event that you're not expecting a hero to have like any attack actions, but when you get into the super late game, being able to attack and almost guarantee that you'll have go again simply based on what your opponent is going to block with is is big. It's big. If you can save a card, save a pitch, save spending on a reaction to give go again, just have that extra card in hand. It's a nice feeling. Not getting the +1 is like something I get used to. But yeah. I'll say I did not have Hot Streak in, and right now Hot Streak is in. So I think that puts it as best new weapon for me in heavy hitters.
That's a great answer. Great answer. What is your favorite equipment?
Ooh. I'm just trying to think of, the easy answer is going to be grains.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to say Balance of Justice.
Okay.
When it came out, when news hit that it would be like the top prize card, for tier 3 and higher events, I think it was. People were like, I wonder what this does. And it has the new ability, the new type of blocking in Guardwell, which I think is neat. And just it's the ability it has on its card, I think, is very fascinating. When you combine with the Guardwell, like, you get to do your block, you get to keep it, and then at instant speed, it's basically it's an extra 3 block, or at least a that all you got type of effect where gaining a card at instant speed defensively, especially when someone has popped out an Art of War turn, Blood Rush Bellow, they've done their big thing, and now you can go up a card on your end defensively. It just has there's so many so many man, sorry. It's because I woke up. There's so much there's so many ramifications from being able to draw that card and what that does for you defensively. It kind of reminds me, it's almost like the anti-Scowling Fleshbag, if that makes sense. From as Brute offensively or defensively blocking that, making your opponent offensively lose a card they didn't intend to. Now you're defensively gaining a card your opponent didn't expect you to have. That can do a lot for you.
It's kind of funny. I've been testing some Rhinar, right? And obviously Scowling Fleshbags in the deck. And I just kind of threw Balance of Justice in the sideboard. Mm-hmm. And every single time I came up against a deck where I was like, oh, I think maybe Balance of Justice is right here, I just realized, no, actually, I think it's still... Funny enough, I think it's still Scowling Fleshbag for Brutes, because it's kind of doing the same thing. Not the same thing, but it's kind of doing something on the same turn. And just Scowling Fleshbag could have just a little bit more disruption. But for every other hero, I think Balance of Justice is a
yeah, and I think a Scowling defensive Intimidate, I think, is something. It's great. I think it's very easy if they do more of it. I think it's very easy to just kind of break Brute as a hero. Like, we're pretty close to a Brute heaven right now. I feel like Brute's in a very good spot. I think a defensive Intimidate outside of Scowling Fleshbag might be too much. Might be too much. That we know, we have a taste. I think that's enough right now.
I think they proved their point with Scowling Fleshbag. I think so.
Yeah.
What is your favorite run-of-the-mill card? Your instance, non-attack actions, reactions, blocks from heavy hitters.
Not blocks. Don't like the blocks. That is a good one. I think about Cast Bones a lot, and how many might tokens you get out of that one. I think I have to go with Tenacity. Yeah, right. A little from left field, but I don't think Ninja is in a great spot right now, but to see Tenacity in action is something like a Phi player, I think, can really appreciate. If you have your big Art of War turn, and I think this is even good for like Katsu. I've wanted to put in Mask of Pouncing Links and just test a build where I can fetch Tenacity at some point, but like Salt the Wound is a card that if your opponent doesn't block, it punishes them for that, right? So if they don't block, it's buffed for however many hits are on the combat chain there. Tenacity is the opposite, or is the opposite of Salt Wound, where however many like cards and equipment you've used to block that combat chain, it gets buffed. I ran into on Talishar Lupine Fiasco, who has started doing daily KO videos, but he's like the Fi guy. And he had his big Art of War turn, and I was Kassai, and I tried to block as efficiently as I could, and I got a Salt the Wound for 7, like Snapdragon Scalers into a Tenacity for 10 for my trouble. Like after I think it was like 6 chain links before I got to Salt the Wound, and it just wasn't like I let a Phoenix Flame hit, he cracked, he got Tenacity. Like I was still trying to block well and respect the turn, and you were getting punished one way or the other. And so I think it has a lot of potential. I think it probably sees more play the more that gets kind of fleshed out a little bit. Like I think it actually probably has a lot of room in Katsu. Like if you're playing your Surging Strike line and you kind of telegraph it, but it's on purpose. Let them block Surging, let them block Whelming. Do what you got to do, and then kind of end with Tenacity after they've overblocked with 4, 5, 6 cards to stop you from doing combo things, and then you just are like, thanks, here's a Tenacity for 12. That feels like it would feel really good. Getting Mask of Momentum away to put in Pouncing Links. Usually reserve that for like Kano and like decks where you have to go so fast, but it's definitely something to think about. I haven't done a lot of ninjaing lately, but it's been on my mind. So Tenacity.
Great answer. Tenacity is awesome because like I think the obvious implication is ninja, but even like I think about something like Bolton, right? Where you can just get like some random value out of it throughout the game, or kind of follow up after like a Lumina turn where
exactly. Imagine ending a Lumina turn, like you go triple Lumina or some shit, and your opponent tries tries really really hard to stop you from doing it, and then you just end with a Tenacity for God knows how much.
Oh, that's so sweet.
+8 on top of everything else. It's just so good. It seems so good.
So good.
That's a good one. Bolton. I haven't think about.
I mean, it's so well designed. I think. I mean, a lot of the generics in this set were awesome. I mean, I'm falling in love even more so with Standing Order at this point. But I think that card's just awesome. But let's talk about the RTN meta because it's RTN season. And this is our first real taste, and this is where we're going to see actually like a swath of heroes get some LL points, and kind of, it doesn't look like anything's going to hit LL this season unless Fi somehow becomes the best deck, which does not seem like it's going to be. But what we have right now outside of our own personal testing or anything like that is we have 3 major CC events. The past couple weeks since Heavy Hitters came out. We had the Battle Harden in Hartford, which we had mentioned a couple times now. We also just had the Battle Harden in Liverpool, which just wrapped up the other day. And then also Arcane Games and Events, the AGE Open Series, had a top 8. I'm not sure how many players played in that, but we did. I mean, we saw some
the AGE Open, I believe, had 70 players at least.
That's
70-ish.
That's pretty big. That's for
them, yeah. For that particular event, it was good.
And we saw some pretty, familiar names in there as well. So I'm just gonna read off what we saw in each tournament. So first off, we got Hartford. So this was the coming out party for Heavy Hitters. And I think we saw a lot of what you might expect. The top 8 was KO, 2 KOs, which, that's the hot deck right now. Pretty great aggro deck. Levia, 1 Levia, another great Brute. So that's 3 Brutes in the top 8. We did have 2 Bravos, one of them being Jonathan Lemire, who you lost to. not to bring it up. We had one Kassai, which you mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Majin Bey on Kano, which, that's to be expected, and our bud Rose Smith on Dash, original Dash, I might say, no Dash.io, to be seen. Now the winner was Yuki Lee Bender on KO. Yep, and just still great, and it was a finals between her and Majin Bey on Kano. KO comes out on top after Majin beating a KO in the previous round. I think this is probably what a lot of us would have expected. This kind of meta, a brute meta, but still everything's still in the mix. We had some Guardian, we had some Warrior, Mechanologist. Kano still can just win games. What did you make of this top 8?
I think it's a good top 8. Did you see the picture of Majin Bey put out on Twitter of the 64 damage turn that he had?
I did.
Man, fuck Kano. All right. All right, let's just get that out there now. I think the scariest thing to come out of Hartford is that Yuki Lee Bender said that KO gave her Lexi vibes, and a lot of people are like, "Oh no," and she had to back up, like, well, not like that. Like it just felt good. I think it's great. Brutes showing up and it not being like some Reinar fatigue thing, I think is very nice. Ed Knight on Bravo and Jonathan Lemire on, those are two very different Bravos. Ed Knight's on your more traditional list. If you go to the January AGE Open winner, Alan Lube, one on Bravo, Showstopper, and that was like very traditional-ish list. It's just in a really good spot right now. Like Bravo, just in general, I think is well positioned. We didn't see any victors here, but I do believe there was a bunch like just outside of that top 8. So lots of Guardian, lots of Brute, like lots of Warrior, very old school feeling there. Without ice or other. Yeah, there's not a lot of talents other than Shadow happening right there. So there's not there's no disruption in the form of ice. So you're seeing people kind of, how do they navigate that? And I think you're seeing those Guardians and Warriors kind of stand out with their, little disruption packages and just ways to defend efficiently and kind of try to hold back some of these, bigger attacks. And you have something like KO coming out. KO and Levi, I think both have just huge pop-off potential now. I think Ethan had posted his kind of heavy hitters Levi list, and I think William was on the same 80 that he had posted like a week or two before this. I think like yellow agile windups, that kind of thing, to just add to the Levi's consistency. Like the less you have to roll scabs, right? But she's always been capable of these, gross, 18, 24 damage turns, without a ton of effort, with the, risk of killing herself all the time. And, if she doesn't have to roll scabs and still get those numbers, I think we're in for it a bit. I think Kano, like especially Majin Bey on Kano, is always going to be a thing, right? I think Dash and Kano, there always seems to be right close to the top 8. I think Dash's matchups spread is just so even that you can have, an expert like Rose is always going to be there that can, turn those matchups into their favor. It's 50-50. She can make it a 51, 51-49 matchup and take it over. Like Merrick Kemp is kind of in that same vein, right? You just have these extraordinary players on these particular heroes that, you don't usually kind of expect, but you expect these individuals to be in that spot.
Specialists.
Yeah. This is very much a specialist season right now. I think that we'll see more and more of that. I think the KO thing was a bit of a surprise. I know people were kind of hot on just how consistent it could be and what that meant for like Berserk. But like Yuki's list doesn't run Berserk, so it's just consistency and Blood Rush Bellows, right? Like it just does good things. And Cast Bones. Cast Bones is like a 0 for 6 a lot of times. Like it's just again? Gross. Yeah, 0-6 go again. It itself doesn't have go again.
Yeah,
but yeah, like you're doing some pretty nutty things if you can do Cast Bones. So I definitely, in terms of like a good like a CC event to open up the heavy hitters meta with, like this Battle Hardened, I think is a great showcase.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of look at it. You mentioned no real interaction, or not interaction, but like no real disruption.
Yeah, ice disruption. There's no taxing.
There's no taxing, but
disruption still exists.
Disruption. Well, we're gonna see.
Disruption is a thing. It still is. Ice is not the only form of disruption.
Exactly, because you look at the snapback from that week in the following week, this past weekend in Liverpool. All of a sudden, we don't see a single brute in the top 8 at the Battle Hardened Liverpool, and we do see a different talent that isn't Shadow, and that is. Well, 2 different light heroes. What? 2 different light heroes. What year is it? We had a Bolton that was number 1 seed, mind you. Bolton. We did have 1 Kano yet again. 1 Azuri. There were no assassins last week. 2 dashes this time. Yet again, 2 Bravos, which, 2 great players, Michael Fang and Erica Forsloff. And then we had Rob Catton, or I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, on Prism, who ended up winning the tournament with Prism, not the Prism that we used to know, the new one. So
scary.
I mean, I don't. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but to bring Prism to a meta that is expected to be a brute meta is crazy. Now, I will say, I know for a fact. Well, I don't know for a fact, but I heard that Rob did not face a single brute in Swiss. So. That could be, not to, downplay his success here, but, that makes it a little bit easier in Prism, in my opinion. Although, are people running Gambler's Gloves right now? Maybe not. It makes clearing up those auras a little bit easier when you have that, but if you're not expecting it, Apex Bonebreaker is just way better. I think most people agree. So what do you make of this top
8? This is shout out to Rob Catton. I think he got top 4 as Fi in last year's not this past Worlds, but the 2022 Worlds, I believe it was. But he was right up there. We love Bolton. Bolton is a warrior that is very well positioned. I think both Raiden and Saber combo is in a really great place. And I think like when Raiden Bolton is viable, I think we're it's a better world to be in. And it hits like a dump truck. Like it is very vastly underrated. If there was one deck I would name as like the number 1 underrated deck in CC, it is like Raiden Bolton, because it can throw with the biggest beasts in the game right now. We love to see Azuri. Azuri's supposed to be in like a bad spot right now, as well as like Azalea. But very much, I don't know this person. I'm in Azuri conversations a lot, and I don't necessarily know them. But like an Azuri specialist is, can play a dangerous game with just about anyone if they can get their disruption off and they can avoid. Like Dromize, then you're in a very good spot. But yeah, I think right, the story of that is Rob on Prism Awakener's Soul. If you look at the list, they're running Vestige of Soul as their armor. They're running both Great Library of Solana and Light of Soul, so 2 fables in their 80. And it's very old school. Luminars 2, right, really brought back the ability to run your Herald package again. So Tome of Divinity is in there, and it's very much, what was old is new again. You know, put cards in soul, gain advantage with vestige of soul as a resource. Try to get like a double tome, and you're off to the races. If you can double tome on a turn, it's you know, it was game over in 2021, and I'm pretty sure it's game over now too. You add in the legendary figments, and you have, you know, it's pretty impressive. You have all the things that made Prism good, plus a few extra toys. This one has the potential for an Arclight Sentinel loop with Figment of Rebirth. You can play your Arclight Sentinel. They have to target it. It goes to the graveyard. Your Figment of Rebirth, when you flip it into the Angel of whatever the name is of Rebirth,
Probably.
you can put the Arclight back onto the top of your deck. So you can draw it, you can play it out again. But you can lock out your opponent if they don't have extra action points in this Sentinel loop. I weirdly faced this deck in December, just in the wild, and I was like, what happened? Like, what is this? What is this gross monstrosity? And I hadn't heard about it, but like Rhea Adams started kind of testing something like this in the last few weeks on their stream on YouTube. Excuse me. So, you know, the Prism people kind of knew that this could be a thing. And here it is, like in full, you know, full view. I mean, it faced it killed Bravos. It went through dashes. Like, it beat the things that it was supposed to beat, and then it beat the Bolton. Like, those are all matchups that are either like or you know, they're meant to not do great in. And Rob is one, so scary. I don't know how I feel about Prism being like good. But here we are.
Well, I mean, it's a glimmer of hope for the Prism stands out there, and I think seeing this, right, like I this being the most recent deck or recent tournament we have results for, that and the AGE we'll just talk about in a second. This is probably a better indicator of maybe what we'll see at least in the first week of RTN, and I think that there's going to be a lot of hope for Prism coming out of the gates here. Yeah. And you know, people are short-sighted, right? You know, it doesn't, who cares about Hartford, right? That was 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Let's look at this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're going to, you know, they're going to forget that people still want to play KO and they still want to play Levia and stuff like that, you know, was popular there. Or people are going to look at this and be like, well, what's good into Prism? You know, is it Ninja? Is Ninja good into Prism? I'm not sure. You know, I am curious to see how many Prisms pop up, if it's the real deal or if this was a fluke. I'm sure Brian Gottlieb is you know, finally like, yeah, I told you. It only took you to print like 3 more cards for it, but that's okay, Brian. You know, we'll get Prism there eventually, but I'm interested to see where it goes. Now, the AGE, this was another diverse top 8. I mean, we do have an Azalea, which did not make top 8. It played into Charles Dunn on Bravo, who did make the, I should rewind that. Did make top 8, did not make the
Azalea
finals.
made the top 8, yeah.
Azalea
Charles
was one seed. It was Zane. Zane Johnson. On Azalea, Charles Dunn on Bravo, Leon Castle on Dorinthia, Moises Lopez on KO, Kano, Ryan Brown, Grant Storms, Romai, who did make the finals and I believe won. I don't have that in front of me, but we have Colin Erickson on Kassai as well, and then Teklovasen, Connor Davenport.
Yeah, a Teklo in the top 8,
which is pretty crazy. Now,
I do think. Let me just check something real quick. I think Moises Lopez was on Kassai as well.
Oh, the KO is wrong?
I believe so, but let me just... I may have been on the clock looking at Kassai lists.
I won't share this with your boss. Don't worry, Pat. Where do you work?
No. No, okay, no, I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm not going to expose my racial ignorances here, but there's another person that was Kassai.
Okay.
We can continue.
Gotcha.
We can continue.
So this is another very diverse topic here because we have no duplicates as far as I can see, and Dromai still there.
Oh
Dromai
man,
still here.
So I think the story of this is the finals is Charles Dunn, right? Charles Dunn, national champion. Charles Dunn, battle hardened winner. Charles Dunn, guardian extraordinaire. Charles Dunn goes down 40-0 to Dromai. I believe he was running, if not the same 80 as Jonathan Lemire from the Battle Hardened in Hartford. Pretty close to it. He was running a fatigue package. He had Ram's Head. He had Rainbow Staunches. He was playing that game. That Dromai, I believe, lost its last point of life sometime early in the top 4 game and did not lose another point of life through to the finals. I believe it ended up 39 in the top 4 and then not a life lost against Charles Dunn in the finals.
Pretty incredible.
Scary to think about.
Very scary to think about. I mean, I don't think, I don't think it's unheard of, especially in that matchup, especially if Charles Dunn's on something like, Charles Dunn plays, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to play something that's grind. He's going to play something that's going to, drag the game out. Dromai can take advantage of that, I think, just by creating a board presence and value. And almost you look at that and you think, well, maybe Kassai should be looking at Raise an Army to beat that. But even then, that is still
tough.
It's tough.
It's real tough. I tell you what, thinking about from a Kassai perspective, I don't know what the answer is, but also coming from it playing Azuri, Azuri into Dromai is like a losing proposition. The one thing that we can do is just go face. Just forget everything. There's no way that we're going to produce any kind of turn that is going to outvalue Dromai while clearing any amount of dragons, right? You balance out your resources by, swinging a dagger here and there as it comes. You might have down and dirty in the arsenal, but if there was ever a race, like Azuri races, it just blood rots, just anything you can throw at Dromai. You try to get her down to the point where she's blocking more than she's putting stuff on the ground and hope you eke one out. I think Kassai might have to take a similar route here and just paper cut the shit out of her face and hope you can get her down to 0 before 80 dragons are on the board.
That's probably it. I mean, that's as a Riptide player, that is the plan, right? Just these dragons don't exist. Maybe Kyloria exists. And
see, that's the question.
Yeah.
I think most heroes, when a hero that has to clear dragons, you have to prioritize those, and it's like, how much do you is Kyloria? Can you keep a Kyloria on board if you always have something for them to take other than a card? Is that then okay to take 4 to the face all the time? So is it good to trade copper and 4 damage to keep going to the face? Because then you can just keep if you can keep making money, Kyloria is not a snatch, right? But how much the opportunity to make that money in order to make that a thing is and Kassai's awkward attacks, right? It's 2 and 5. How are you using that? Especially if there's a 4 toughness body, are you investing reactions into clear? And this is where are you investing a reaction into a dragon? That feels terrible to do. You're gonna in the swing, a friggin' mirror guy, because you have to. When you do that, it's just such a demoralizing event. When you do, it's this could have hit Dromai in the face, and I'd feel a lot better about it. But wasting those cards essentially is it's just a big feels bad. But Dromai seems to be in such a good spot right now. It's just illusionists, right? Friggin' illusionists. They're terrible, man. It's so scary.
They just always show up, and it's just like, I don't know. I don't want to say it's like annoying. It is a little bit annoying, but like
a little bit.
I mean, you know, Dromai will likely eventually LL this year. Right? I don't. Prism's not going anywhere, but Dromai will go.
I would definitely keep an eye out on Dash. Is the highest in LL points right now, I believe.
Phi, I believe, is because Phi won Worlds. I thought.
Ooh, maybe after Worlds.
Yeah. I think we're looking at Phi, Dash, Dromai currently. So there's a real possibility that some of those heroes might rotate. I think Phi is probably the least likely based on how the meta is shaping out right now. But things could change. Things always do change, and we can have a new meta sooner rather than later.
Look at that. Look, 764 Phi. Yeah. Dash is at 698. I would say, you know, big picture this year, like Dash always seems to find a way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you combine that with RTN wins, I would not be shocked to see Dash gone. Like if it wins a calling here soon, like that might be it for our inventor extraordinaire.
It could be, and you know, we had a decent time with Dash. It wouldn't feel like it was too soon, or like I wouldn't say decent amount of time, not decent time.
We didn't talk a ton about it, but that Teklo in the top 8 is something to behold. Yeah. Like Teklo, before that top 8, I have the impression Teklo is not a functioning pile of cards.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's not like
curious.
It's not like the Magneto Evo was a huge boom.
It really brought it over the top.
Yeah. So I'd be interested to see that list, but it's pretty. I mean, it's cool. It's cool. I mean, it could just be playing a really, really solid.
I will say, I joke and say that it's, you know, it's not a functioning pile of cards. It's another one of those. It's very Riptide-esque where the matchups, it's good matchups. It's great into. It blocks really well.
Yeah.
Right. So like, you know, it beat the Kassai. In that top 8, faced the Kassai, beat the Kassai, went on to the top 4, and then I think it faced Dromai in the top 4. Yeah, and that's a matchup that just doesn't happen. Teklo does not do well into Dromai at all.
So I mean, yeah, it's pretty interesting. I don't know, Teklo. I've had Singularity played against me, and it's a real thing. You know, as much as I want to say it's a trap,
this list is fascinating.
I haven't seen it. What's in there? Tell us. I mean, we can't show it, but what are we looking at?
All right, so just looking at Connor Davenport's AGE Open list, and you know, this is everything you dream it to be. 2 of Annihilate Engine. So no sideboards. So this is 68 cards showing up. So Command Conquer, 2 of Fabricates, 3 Fate for Scenes, 2 Induction Chambers, 6 Junkyard Dogs, 3 red, 3 blue, 5 Liquid Cool Mayhems, 2 red, 3 blue, 2 Scrap Traders as Singularity, Sink Below, 3 Terminator Tanks, 3 War Machines, 2 Remembrances, 2 That All You Got. Your full playset of Evo, Steel Soul Controller, Memory, Processor, and Tower. Blue Heavy Artillery, 3 Hold the Lines, 3 Mechanical Strength, 3 Magnetic Protocol, and 3 Steel Street Enforcements with 2 Warmonger's Diplomacy. And you have the full suite of, you have Achilles Accelerator, but Cog Workspace, arm, chest, head, legs, and then Proto Base, arms, chest, head, legs, with Teklo Leveler and Teklo Plasma Pistol as options, as well as Visiotronic Model Eye as an extra headpiece.
Wow. I mean,
that went full Teklo.
Yeah. Well, I just love the Junkyard Dogs in there. I mean, that's...
Yes, 6 Junkyard Dogs, yeah.
Which is... so that sounds, well, first of all, Connor Davenport here, I have to assume has been working on this deck for quite some time, and might end up being someone that we look to as a specialist. I mean, you see one in the top 8, you gotta start looking at that person, what they're thinking, and how did they get there. Bad matchups aside, obviously something went right. That's really interesting, and that's like kind of the beautiful thing about this meta. And I am curious as to what we're going to see these coming weekends for the RTNs. I'm expecting still a lot of Brute. I think still a lot of Dromai. And I Warrior and Guardian are still pretty big here, but it's one of those things, like, it's almost everything except Assassin. In a way, Yeah.
And we do look. There's the Odd Azuri was in the top 8 of Battle Hardened Liverpool. So it's not completely out of the picture, but there are heroes that are more well positioned than others. I think right now, Warrior is possibly in the best position and it's been in quite some time. I think a lot of Warriors up until the other day were like, this is our time to shine, and then Prism shows up with Arclight Sentinel again. It's like, damn it, God, man, every time.
So close.
But there was a lot of good cards that came out of heavy hitters that benefited everybody. Like the Goblet of Blood and Wine, I think it's called. Is a blue. It's a 2-block, but it's a blue. Getting a vigor and an agility token. Agility tokens are huge for warriors, like, in general. Shift the Tide of Battle is, I think, like an auto include now in at least Dorinthia. I think it's still trying to find its spot. It just might not be a Kassai card. I mean, it felt like it initially, but I think that one's kind of come out a lot. But definitely like Blade Flurry. Like I said, there's auto include in all the warrior decks, but like it even goes right into Bolton. So there's Grains of Blood Spill has been kind of being passed around a lot as well. It has been the de facto Kassai armor, but even that, as we evolve in Kassai players, we saw in the AGE Open and elsewhere that people were like ripping up their tunics and just putting Grains of Blood Spill in there, and given some time to absorb. People are like, maybe Tunic is still right in some matchups, right? Like, there's always the heroes that ask the question, facing heroes that block well. You usually change some things up. Like Mask of Momentum will leave Katsu in some events where. Excuse me. I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry. Things like Mask of Momentum will leave when you know that your opponent's just not going to let you have it, and so you put in Mask of Pouncing Links. Like 2 Grains of Blood Spill feels like that to Tunic. So like against a deck that blocks well, you're probably going to put Tunic in anyways. And that one resource, I think people kind of took it for granted, and then saw what happens when you don't. Like Grains of Blood Spill is something that you really gotta capitalize on and kind of chase as you go now. Like now you have to constantly get that vigor token to get the value out, and so you just gotta go. But on when you're doing slower things, Tunic is usually right kind of deal.
So don't throw them out yet, is what you're saying.
Don't throw your Tunics. I hear they're still pretty good. I think it's coming down to, right, and I think I feel like I said this the last time we talked about a constructed meta, but it really is like rewarding like a specialist right now. But it feels like it's really, really wide open. I'm hoping I wouldn't say resurgence, but like we'll see, Illusionist is a gatekeeper, right? How prominent they are will really dictate how actually wide open we are. It's very easy to kind of reduce this down now into a triangle of brute slash, fast thing, guardian and illusionist, and that always seems to be where all things balance out in the end. But I think at least at this point, it really is kind of anybody's show. If they, you pray to the gem gods a little bit, but like if you bring your hero and you feel good about it, then you can go pretty far. Good enough. You can go far enough where you could probably top 4 in RTN if you know what you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
And we certainly do, Pat. Now, here's a final question before we get to some listener questions. If you were, are you playing RTN this weekend?
Not this weekend. I'm playing 2. I'm playing one on the 24th and then one on the 9th. Both are classic constructed. I would play, just for the record, I have not had the opportunity to, but I would love to draft this set. I played the seal. This is my set. I love everything that this looks like in limited. Given the opportunity, absolutely draft this if I had an RTN. I don't know why people go to limited RTNs without any practice, but they do all the time. I would be one of those persons. I would absolutely do that.
Well, here's the question, and this set for limited is incredible. If you had a CC RTN this weekend, what would you bring, removing yourself from Kassai, right? Would it still be Kassai, I guess is the question, or would there be something that feels the safest, I guess, or not the safest, gives you the best shot to win?
Well, I'll tell you what I have in real life, and I think that answers this question. So I have Kassai right here. I'm playing it constantly, and I'm going like, come on, Pat, figure it out. Like, turn it into wins. Get good with this hero. And then right next to that, I have Bravo. And if it was tomorrow, I would probably bring Bravo.
That's probably probably right.
Kind of, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at there. I think having faced it enough times, if I had Victor, I might bring Victor. It seems to be good at Bravo things and just a little more flexible in what it can do offensively and defensively. It can kind of pivot pretty easy. And the token generation is pretty nasty, but it does feel like Bravo a little easier, if that makes sense. And so I think it's in a very good position as well in terms of like Guardian play.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And
I think Guardian's a great pick.
I'm hearing a lot of good things about Victor, and obviously we're seeing Bravo do some stuff here.
But I think if you're insisting on bringing a warrior and like you haven't had if you're not digging into one in particular, I think it's Bolton.
Yeah.
And I think bringing like a hybrid package is best, and get comfortable trying to do a Lumina turn. But like a Raiden is gonna slap. It just is. So don't be afraid to do that. And if you can get the lines down with Bolton, I think you're in a good spot there. If you're bringing something that like you're 2-card 7s, 2-card 8s, like you really gotta love what you're doing and know your bad matchups in order to bring that and feel like you're in a spot there. And that's where like Kassai is in that boat. Its matchups are good for the most part across the board, but they're still, they're not 80-20 matchups. Like you still have to, you have to figure out how you're winning these games. And like I said, I'm just not. I haven't done it yet. I feel like I'm good. I can beat ninjas, I can beat rangers, except Riptide. But like I can tell you, like fatigue matchups still give me a lot of trouble. I faced a fatigue -IO like the other day. I threatened out 231 damage and I lost. Like it was just brutal. And I dealt 42 damage. They were playing like these blue med kits that you tuck and you gain 2 life, and
yeah.
all the blocks, all the unmovables, and then had like its end game was red Findels and like red Ravenous Assaults, so just like 3 for like 7 for 3s. And it was brutal, and I did not appreciate how defensive it was, so I thought when I got to my second cycle that I could start going over the top. I was wrong. They had more blocks than I thought that than they had. So I blew that load, and I was like, I think I ran out of go again too, which was the worst part.
Which is why you need the hot streak, right?
Yeah, actually, that was the game that kind of firmed up the hot streak part there, because like the different in Blitz, Kassai had, it's like over 50% of its deck is go again, right? This, you do not have that here. Like, even if you might have 20 something instances of go again when it's all said and done, between the Blade Runners and spoils and run throughs and glints, and depending on what your agility generators are, but you run out. Like, if you go long enough, you run out. So hot streak mitigates that disadvantage, you know, in these longer games for sure. That did solidify that for me.
Well, you heard it from Pat. You take Guardian or Bolton if you're going Warrior. My answer, and I'm taking Riptide, I'm almost guaranteed, but my answer would be Levia or KO. I think that KO is, and it's still a great spot. It's new, it's flashy. You played with it at sealed, so you got a little feel for what it can do. Levia, if you had been paying attention to Flesh and Blood for the past 6 months since Levia got the new tools, you probably at least looked or learned the matchup on one side of the table. It could still be, the deck that's doing the crazy numbers. But we do have some listener questions before we go home here. And, of course, right out of the gates, Greg, a.k.a. Darth Prentice, asks, what's your favorite yellow pitch card in the Kassai deck? Specifically the Kassai deck.
We do love our yellow cards in Kassai, and I just want to get it on the record here. All right, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding about my stance on yellow cards. Right? I do not hate yellow cards. My stance in particular is that yellow cards need a particular use in order to put them in your deck. Right? Do not sacrifice strength for suboptimal action in the form of a yellow version of a card. That's all. Does that mean down with all yellow cards? No, we love yellow cards, especially when they're the best in slot. So, I play yellow cards all the time. Some of my best cards are yellow, right? And, for Kassai in particular, there are, there's not a ton of choices. We do love our run throughs in Blade Runners. There, a cash in is also like really good, but oldie but a goodie. But like Blood on Her Hands is, I think, it's probably. I mean, it's an easy one to go to, but you're still building to a Blood on Her Hands turn. And I think we talk about that setup, right? Most of your game is setting up to fight for 6 copper, and if you can get it off, then you can pop off a Blood on Her Hands and get there. But your opponent knows that too, right? So you're telegraphing at all times when you're trying to make money, whether that's banishing for the gold effect or setting up like a spoils. But if you're like a 2-card hand spoils is a lot different than a 5-card hand spoils, and you wait to get the 5-card hand spoils to get those. But definitely, so Blood on Her Hands is an easy one. It might be a bit of a cop out, but
it's more of a copper out. Am I right, folks? Anyway, you can submit these questions on the Buds Discord. You can hear jokes like that, too. Next question.
You know what my not favorite yellow card is? What? Is Raisin Army. It's just not... It doesn't speak to me. It doesn't spark joy.
I mean, it's cool. It's flavorful. It's pretty neat. I wish Olympia could play it because the gold generates.
Yeah, right. It makes a lot of gold. Yeah, for sure.
Sigma asked something that we kind of just answered, actually. I mean, with the Bolton, but which warrior looks better now, and which one has the most potential to rise up in the future?
In terms of rising up, it's Kassai, right? Like, I think Kassai still has some pieces to yet to have. Like, Kassai makes me excited for expansion slots in the future, right? Because it is like you get one or two cards that do something, and you know, you Kassai feels like it's in a spot almost like where Arachne was in Dynasty. Like you built Arachne and it was there and it was what it was, but like Kassai is recycling a lot of cards and it's doing a lot of the same things, but it looks like it should be doing more new things, and it's just not. But it just doesn't have either the payoffs or the enablers to really branch out into those new things. Olympia is a lot of the same way. Like right now we're saying, gold is the payoff, and James White's even said like the real payoff is in future sets. So like it's coming down the line. So whatever you're doing now isn't like the end game for these warriors here. So Kassai and Olympia, I think definitely have the most room to grow there. But we said I like Bolton and Dorinthia, with Bolton being, I think, just like the better positioned warrior there. But I do think warriors are in a good spot in general right now. So like Bolton and Dorinthia both got upticks in where they sit on tier lists. And like I said, I'd pick Bolton. If I gun to my head, I needed to bring a warrior, I would bring Bolton right now.
Bolton William from the Table Pit asks, is Kassai in CC as unplayable as she was in Blitz? I'm assuming this is new Kassai. I'm guessing that she's not good in Blitz, or this is facetious.
Might be facetious. Sure. Being a skirmish winner with Kassai myself, I have to say that old Kassai was very playable in Blitz. Yeah. So. I have not tried new Kassai in 40 cards, but I think the Kassai story in CC is, I think we've established is that you can't rest on as an old Kassai player, you can't rest on your laurels on what you did in Blitz. You have to be patient and learn to set up CC Kassai for these big turns to actually do some damage. Otherwise, it might feel like it's a bit fruitless in what you're doing there. So Kassai and CC does require a lot more patience and a lot more thought about what you're doing on a per turn basis. But I think it possibly could be the most rewarding in terms of your play if you concentrate and actually get those lines set up well.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, the half the deck being go again could still be true in this Blitz. So
yes. Yep. Yes.
Smithel of Smithel Gaming, who runs the Commoner League, Flesh and Common Blood. Please check that out. Online league. Very cool. If you could design any Flesh and Blood card, what would you design and why? This is pretty
so I've actually thought about this for some time. Yeah. And I'm gonna go with an answer that I think I've kind of had in the back of my mind for a little bit. I would introduce lifelink to I don't think she needs it anymore, but I would bring a lifelink concept to Levia in the form of, like, if I was to put it into a card, I might say that it's a some kind of attack action that instead of losing life for blood debt this turn, you would gain that much life instead, and so you would have the ability to kind of save yourself from like a killer turn, or in some way benefit from losing so much life and blood debt over the course of a game, just as just natural happenstance. But you can play one game to actually give yourself kind of a one-time buff back up to pre stupid brick turn, losing 12 life and going down from you're at 28, you're feeling good, and you go down to 12 all of a sudden, and you're like, oh, this sucks. But having one card to put you back up into like that, where you were without I think moving a lot of other pieces around is kind of where I would go there. Because I don't know if she needs it probably now, because but at before heavy hitters, I felt like she really needed something, even with the demi hero. But I think that type of effect could translate well into like, I don't know if it's a necromancer, but it's probably like a either shadow based, or if they introduce like a cleric class that's both light and shadow, I think some kind of like life link drain life, effect could be part of those heroes where you're playing with life manipulation, so you're losing life or you're gaining life and having some kind of positive effect. You kind of see that with this set a little bit, right? You lose life to do a thing. Some kind of card that helps you gain a life while playing with a blood debt type of effect where you're losing life as well. I think it's a fun way to play the game and not necessarily mess with your damage metrics. Your 3 value cards kind of deal.
I mean, that'd be sweet. That'd be really sweet. And I mean, I think like anybody who's played Leviathan before Dusk Till Dawn, we all thought about stuff like that. We were like, what if it
did this? Like how can we just stop the bleeding altogether?
I would design a some sort of trap recursion.
Right. Like we just,
I don't. It
I'd
would
make
have
a card
to be,
that makes my thing better.
I think it would be. It would have to be pretty hard to do, or at legendary or something like that. Like we just got real in, so like they're obviously pushing trap interaction. So I'm sure we're gonna get something at some point, or maybe we get like Shadow Riptide at some point, and you gotta banish the trap to grab it back or something like that, or something cool like that. But thank you for the question, Smiddle. And final question, which actually will just tie right into your plugs. Capolo asks, when is the action point coming back? I miss it. Pat, thanks for coming on. Plug all your things and tell us when the action point is coming back.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't have anything in the books at the moment, but I am Patrick Shaw from Off the Rails TCG, the podcast. The Action Point is our flagship podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Off the Rails TCG. That's also the name of the YouTube channel. You can click the subscribe button, and eventually a new video will come out there. When we'll see here. I have to do some booking, but I think we're about ready to get back into the saddle here. So let's say in the next couple weeks, we'll hopefully get something going here. I do have some RTNs coming up. I've not for nothing, I've enjoyed this time to kind of, I've kind of played a little Diablo. I've done some testing. I've actually played some games. So there's some benefits to not creating content with your time management here. But we will be getting back here. I miss hearing my intro music. I miss talking to people. And I think it's a good time in Flesh and Blood right now. So, we got to hop on that bandwagon and get back to riding here soon. So, yeah, next couple weeks, that's where you can find me. And thanks for having me on. I love talking to you. I love hanging out with you. Yeah. And pleasure to be here.
Oh yeah, anytime. I mean, you're my DH. I've said it before. It's like when I'm like, who could talk about this? It's Pat. It's always Pat. Pat is.
I can talk.
Yeah. I mean, but and not for nothing. You know what you're talking about. As more than me. And that's a high bar, folks.
Give the illusion. That's half the battle.
You can all continue to find me on Twitter at freshbudspod. Check out the Buds Discord, YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Check out the Patreon. It's a great way to support the show. And food, Pat, you hit us with the Cape Codder last time. Or no, that was 2 times ago, I think.
It was 2 times ago.
2 times ago.
I forget what I brought in last time. One time was the Oreo. One of those things. We had the Cape Codder. We had the most Oreo. Man, what are we going to talk about this time? I'm trying to think if anything like kooky came about recently. What did I have? Oh, yes, that's right. What am I talking about? All right, just like here's like fat kid, just stuff that I do that this is absolutely not a weed podcast, but recently, I've been liking to like cook for myself a little bit. I don't do anything crazy, but I've always been a fan of like gravy. So I get the instant gravy pack. So I get a country gravy mix, like the white country gravy.
Oh, yeah.
And like the Dyson or Dyson's the vacuum. Tyson, like a chicken breast, you put them in the air fryer. So I got like a plastic like a your plastic little Tupperware-ish container, and I didn't feel like cooking it on the stove, so there's microwave instructions for the gravy. So I microwaved like a whole thing of gravy. I put some of the chicken breast in the in the air fryer, and then I microwaved like a pack of white rice. And I put it all together, and if you didn't know any better, it looked like I was like a hardcore food prepper eating my like super healthy meal like out of the container that I just there's probably lots of broccoli and stuff. There's broccoli, rice, and chicken in there, but it's really like a half gallon of white gravy. There's I had all the gravy. I had three chicken breast patties, like fried breaded patties, and then like white rice mixed all together. Was it fantastic? It sure was. I don't think the instant gravy packets get enough credit. But you could pick it like $1.19, and your little anywhere you go, if you like gravy, you just add a little water. It's like flour and seasoning, which is all gravy is anyway. So it's not like you're robbing yourself, or it's not like instant coffee. You're just making the thing.
Yeah.
I'm a big country gravy fan, like peppered country gravy or sausage country gravy. It's good for breakfast. Like, look, there's gravy has a lot of different applications, and I'm here for it. Every single one of them.
Biscuits and gravy, poutine. I mean, just
fuck yeah, man.
Going.
Yeah, I'm not a huge cheese curds guy, but in New England, we do have poutine that's just like with cheese, and I'm down for it. Cheese curds make me feel a little weird, but that's regular cheese on top of it, good stuff.
Hey, well, you heard it here first.
Gravy.
No time for Charmer. Everybody, good luck at your RTNs this weekend, and see you next week.